I found a blanket crochet stitch pattern that I think you're really gonna love, especially if you like texture, a repetitive stitch that leads to little to no thinking and a really relaxing experience. I'd say it's beginner friendly, someone that's only been crocheting for a little bit of time. I think you're gonna really have fun with this project. And if you're someone who's more of an intermediate or advanced level crocheter, I think you're still gonna love this because it is such a relaxing experience that sometimes that's all we really want, is to just kind of zone out and chill to a project. And this is going to be the project for you. In the description section below, I have a link to my blog where you can find a free version of the pattern we're going over today. Now, let's go over what materials I used. All right, so the materials that I'm going to be using for this flower bud pattern we're making a square out of. The yarn is Cascade Yarns 220 Superwash Merino wool in this deep, dark, beautiful purple color. Oh my goodness, the exact name of this color is number 75 or Port Royale, which is a lot of fun. This yarn is also incredibly soft and I enjoy working with it immensely, and I hope you do as well. The crochet hook that I'm using is a G6 or 4.25 millimeter crochet hook. I'm also using all the regular things like a yarn needle, a pair of scissors, and a stitch marker. Now the stitch marker is optional. I'm not needing to use it. However, I can see how it could benefit somebody who really wants to focus on straight sides. The yarn that I'm using is a solid 3-weight yarn, so if you need to substitute it out for something else, I completely understand. Have fun finding a different color or texture that you really want to utilize. Once you have all the materials that you want to use, go ahead and get started working up this flower bud pattern. To get started, this flower bud pattern is worked in a multiple stitch count of a multiple of 3 plus 2. For the square that we're making, I'm going to begin by chaining 56 chains. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 55, and 56. Great! Let's go ahead and move on to row 1. For row 1, we're going to skip the first 2 chains from our crochet hook. And in the third chain, we're going to make 1 single crochet and 2 double crochets. So single crochet, same chain, double crochet 1. Okay, same chain, double crochet 2. Now, this is something I'm going to call a grouping. Moving forward in the pattern, if I say, now make a group, all I'm meaning is make a single crochet followed by 2 double crochets. Sometimes it's easier for me to just say, now make a group, than it is for me to say that mouthful. All right, moving on for the rest of row 1, we're going to skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and in the third chain, we're going to make that group. So single crochet, followed by 2 double crochets, all in the same chain. Just like that. And repeat, skip 2 chains and group all the way across for row 1. You should end row 1 with a total of 18 groups. I'll meet you at the end of row 1 to show you how we will close the row and move on to row 2. And at the very end of row 1, we're going to make 1 single crochet stitch in the last chain to close off the row. Boom. And that's it. Look how pretty that is. Already looks super neat. Okay, moving on to row 2. For row 2, we're going to begin by just chaining 1. That's it. And then turning our work. In the very first single crochet stitch, we're going to make that grouping. We're going to single crochet and make 2 double crochet stitches in that same stitch. Skip the next 2 double crochet stitches and in the single crochet stitch, make a group. Single crochet, double crochet, and double crochet. And that is the repeat pattern across row 2. Super easy peasy. Skip the double crochet stitches, find the next single crochet, and make a group in that single crochet stitch. Repeat all the way across, and I'll meet you at the end of row 2 to show you how we close row 2 and really how we continue the rest of the pattern. Great. Now to end row 2, all we're going to do is single crochet in the very last stitch, which just so happens to be the first single crochet stitch of the row below. But look how beautiful that texture is. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. And it's also very relaxing because you just get into a rhythm of things and then you don't even think anymore. And so it's so therapeutic to work up this particular pattern. What I also really appreciate is the sides of the work. This pattern should naturally set you up for very straight sides, which is such a huge deal for so many of us. If for some reason you're having wonky sides, I would double check first your stitch tension. Are your stitches too tight or too loose? And secondly, I would check your stitch placement. Is the placement on point, or did you accidentally skip a stitch or do your stitch groupings in a stitch too soon? Either one of those will affect the sides. So naturally, if your stitches are on point, if your placement's on point, the sides of your work should be straight, which is something we want. All right, so for this particular pattern, all we're doing is repeating row 2. That's it. There's no special last row that we have to make in order to close off the top of the project. We literally just keep repeating row 2 until we have met the length that we desire. For this square that we're making, we're going to repeat row 2 for row 3 through the end of row 39. All we're doing is chaining 1, turning our work, and then making a group in that first single crochet stitch. Single crochet and 2 double crochets. Repeating all the way across. In every single crochet stitch, making a group. Single crochet and 2 double crochets. Now, what I did for you is, because I love this stitch so much, I made an entire chart so that way you could take this stitch and make whatever blanket size that you desire. So this chart has a breakdown of different blanket sizes, how many chains will be in the foundation row, how many stitches will be in each row, or groupings, how many groupings will be in each row, and then how many rows you will need to make to complete the blanket dimensions, and approximately how much yarn you will need to make the entire blanket project. I do think that this project would make a stunning baby blanket because there are no holes. It's very solid and it's very beautiful, where at the same time it could also make a stunning throw blanket for an adult as well. All right, some finishing touches that I think would be gorgeous with this stitch without competing. In fact, make the stitch pop. Because this particular stitch has so much texture to it, we want the border to be very solid and plain. That way it's more so framing the project than it is competing with it. I would stick with a single crochet stitch border or a double crochet stitch border to complement the stitches within the body itself. You could also do a plain border with a picot last row, which would add a pop, some pizzazz, give it a little something extra special without actually competing with what's going on in the project. Also, a crab stitch border would have a 3-dimensional framing of this stitch that would bring the eye naturally inward to what's happening on the inside, but still have a gorgeous finishing touch, which I think would be beautiful. And then if you want to have a little bit more, tassels. Tassels would be such a complement to this particular stitch, where it would add a little something extra without competing and actually allowing the stitch to pop, which is what we want. I hope these 4 suggestions for finishing touches inspire you as you are making your project, and that you have so much fun. This particular pattern, square, is square number 1 for our sampler blanket crochet along project for 2024. If you would like to participate in that particular project and make all 12 squares, I think you'll have a blast. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this stitch. I hope you give it a try, and I'll see you very soon with the next video. Bye guys.